Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel She Sews Happiness. If you haven't been here before, I'm Mary Ellen and today I'm just making a flurry of vlogs about some of the patterns that I have been sewing up lately and my thoughts on them, and I just wanted to share that with you. So one of the patterns that I'm going to talk about then is the Jennifer Lauren Handmade Isla Dress. So this I sewed up as part of a pattern test for Jennifer Lauren, and I have to admit I very rarely participate in pattern testing, usually because there are time constraints imposed, and with sewing being my hobby I kind of resist the notion of sewing to a deadline. It's something I do when I have the time, when I have the inclination, just when I'm feeling it basically. So I usually don't say yes to pattern testing. You know, it's very time consuming. There's always at least one toile you'll have to do to make sure you've got that initial fit right before you start sewing. But there's just something about Jennifer Lauren's patterns that I can't resist. It's not the first, it's not the last. I will probably say yes to her on many an occasion. It was just reading the description. I mean, when the pattern tests go out, you don't see the garment you're about to make. You'll get kind of images of what the inspiration has been behind the pattern. You'll get a wee bit of a blurb about, you know, what the pattern's, you know, about, the style, the idea of it. And I knew the moment I read that description for the Isla dress that I had to make it. It was just so reminiscent of casual vintage styles. And some of my favourite patterns are from the Jennifer Lauren Handmade line. So, you know, the gabled top, which I usually make as a dress, the juniper cardigan, things like those that have become classics and staples in my wardrobe make me think, how can I resist another design by Jennifer Lauren? And usually I can't. So the Isla wrap dress, I'm going to pop pictures in for you as I go, is in Jennifer's own words, and I quote, "A little bit of a mix between a 50s house dress and a casual modern wrap dress." That's kind of what I'm about. I love that bridge between old vintage styles and modern silhouettes. And basically what this is then is a back wrap dress which features grown-on sleeves, my favourite because I hate doing full bicep adjustments, and a wide, gently rounded neckline. It's buttoned at the top back, and I'll just show you a picture, and it has waistline darts for bodice shaping and just this gently gathered skirt then that wraps around. It also has pockets, and for me pockets are not optional when it comes to sewing my own garments. So Isla has been designed with light to mid-weight fabrics in mind, fabrics that have like a gentle structure, nothing too harsh. So I decided to sew mine up in cotton lawn. This is a cotton lawn that was gifted to me by Jenny Stitches Fabrics, and if you want to go over there onto Jenny's blog, you'll find an in detail post about the making of the Isla dress and lots of tips and techniques for working with cotton lawn, which is a fabric I personally love. Jenny actually stocks a beautiful array of cotton lawns, so if you're looking for anything like that, that's a really good place to go. But the one that I sewn with was this kind of pink and green check cotton lawn, which was really reminiscent of a dress that was worn by Marguerite in the 100-foot journey, and I'll pop a picture in so you can see what that's like. And you might also be aware that Sew Over It have a pattern called the Marguerite dress, which I've made about 14 times, conservatively, and it is one of my favourites. But this dress is very, very different. It's not the same pattern at all. The one thing I worried about when sewing with the light coloured cotton lawn was that it would be transparent. It's not even remotely, it's great, and because there is that gathered skirt, it just kind of doubles up a little bit, and there is no, you know, transparency, nothing to sneak peek at. But I have to say, I do personally get a lot of my inspiration from watching period dramas and films, things like that, and Marguerite's dresses have always been one of my favourites. even before I started sewing, and so I was really surprised and amazed when I first found the Sew Over It pattern. I'm even happier now that I've got the Jennifer Lauren Handmade Isla dress, because I can recreate my own clothing with a really similar look and feel to the ones that are in that movie, The 100-Foot Journey, which is worth watching if you get a chance. So the Isla dress, as I say, is quite similar to Marguerite in you know, in its style and in its shape, but it does differ in a couple of ways. One thing that is very different is that the Isla dress omits the waistband, which you get on the Marguerite dress, which gives that very, very cinched look. The gathered skirt sewn directly to the bodice in the Isla dress, and as a result there is a little bit more ease in the Isla wrap dress, which you can then fit to preference with the waist ties. So it gives you more of an option as to how you want to wear it. So if it is a warmer day and you want a more loose, casual, relaxed look, you can do that, whereas you can't really do that with the Marguerite, which has its fixed waist in place. And the other main difference is that it has this black wrap detail, which I personally prefer in terms of the overall fit of the dress. So the Marguerite dress by Sew Over It has a back zip with quite a large keyhole opening, which you just fasten at the top with a hook and eye closure. And most people, including myself, find that there is quite a bit of gaping and excess fabric, which is difficult to fix. And even if you look at the Sew Over It photo shoot images, you'll see that those dresses have exactly the same issue. And it's one that I've never really quite found the fix for. One way I've kind of dealt with it, just as a little cheat by the way, is instead of using the hook and eye on the very edges of the back of the two back pieces, I've actually used popper studs, which if you're home alone, are much easier to get in than, you know, trying to get the hook and eye from behind. And two, you can kind of close it over slightly more without it looking obvious. Yeah, it's not ideal, but it's the best that I've come up with so far. I'd have to completely brutalize the pattern to get rid of that gape, and I'm not sure I'm prepared to do that when it looks perfectly fine as it is. So the stud has actually done a bit of a better job than just the hook and eye, because the hook in the eye, you see, is quite loose. It doesn't fit anything terribly firmly, and whereas if you stick a little stud popper on there, it does the job much, much better, in my opinion. But when it comes to the Isla dress, to get back to the point I was originally making, because you have a back wrap, which you can make pattern adjustments to really, really easily by nipping out excess or whatever it is you have to do, lengthening the bodice, shortening the bodice, whatever changes you're making, you can avoid gaping much more easily. And yeah, I think it's just much neater looking at the back. So like all patterns when it comes to Jennifer Lauren Handmade, you know, there's the original and there's the curve fit, and for me it's always the curve fit. I always use the curve block, which just fits much, much better to me, and I did in this occasion as well, which I explained I think in one of my earlier videos that I've just created today and posted. I was talking about the kinfolk dress and about how Jennifer Lauren in her curve range, instead of building in space for the whole frame of the body, concentrates on the bust, waist and the hip areas, acknowledging that it's curves and not just overall mass. That's why I think they work much, much better for me. And even in terms of the bust area, I have found that it gets rid of the necessary full bust adjustment, because the original block goes from A and D, whereas the curve block goes up to an F. And while I am technically, according to the chart, a G cup in Jennifer Lauren sizes, because she has built a little bit of ease into the bust area, I can pull off the F cup perfectly fine, which saved me a lot of effort in making this dress. So the only thing I would say in terms of adjustments is do be aware that these patterns are drafted for somebody who is 5'6". So if you're taller or shorter than that, you will need to adjust the length, because the length will really matter to this pattern just because of that back wrap. You know, if you make it too long, it's going to gape. If you make it too short, it's going to pull. So you do need to make sure you get the bodice piece lengthened, shortened at the length and shorten line just for your measurements. Apart from shortening it, because I'm 5'1", you know, so there's 5 inches difference in the drafting as to what, you know, I need. The only other adjustment I made to the Isla wrap dress was to reposition the darts. So the waist darts I found were really, really wide. You know, they were sitting really wide on me. So I brought them in so that they were hitting my bust apex, which is a standard thing I'll do for any bust or waist dart on any given pattern, just to make it look perfect. But that's all I had to do. I know a lot of people don't seem to bother with this adjustment, but you should try it if you don't, because you would be amazed at the difference it makes to the final garment if you just make those darts work for your particular body shape. And it's simple to do. All you need to do is find your bust apex on your pattern piece, mark it on, and then you'll basically redraw the lines of your darts or move them depending on which you need to do, because if it's only a tiny little amount, all you'll do is you'll redraw the darts from the bottom or from the side into the bust apex. Now if it's more severe, as actually was the case for me, I had to bring mine in over an inch. So what I did was, on the pattern piece, I just cut the rectangle around the dart and move the actual rectangle and then drew off my pattern piece. So it's not a difficult adjustment, it takes 2 minutes, and for the overall effect, I do think it's definitely worth doing. So yeah, I think, again, with the grown on sleeves, you know, you don't have to worry about arm adjustments, which for me is brilliant. And this is one of the real strengths, I believe, of Jennifer Lauren Handmade, is that the fitting process itself is pretty minimal. A lot of the work is already done in the drafting of the pattern pieces. And I personally appreciate the amount of effort Jennifer goes to in order to create patterns that are inclusive and also accessible to beginner sewists. And while Isla is actually geared towards intermediate sewists, I don't think, because of the amount of work that's gone into the grading and because of the clarity and the concise nature of the instructions, I don't think there's any reason why someone who is, you know, still classifying themselves as a beginner shouldn't take it on. You know, until about 6 months ago, I would have classified myself as a beginner, and I could probably have done quite a good job with the Isla dress. You should feel quite adventurous and give it a go. I mean, I still don't know if I'd be an intermediate sewist, to be honest. I have so much still to learn, but I do know the basics. And sometimes just those basic instructions and changes to the pattern pieces can make a huge difference to the overall finish, to create something that's much better than what you would have got if you just grabbed it off the shelf and stuck it on, which is really what we're all about, isn't it? It's about wearing something better than what we had before we learned how to sew. But yeah, I love this dress. I think it's really pretty. For me, this is a dress for wearing to picnics, to enjoy the summer sun, to fill that hamper up with treats and just hit the road, you know, take a good book and yeah, just relax. With sunscreen, of course, factor 50 every day. But yeah, absolutely love it. And while there might be a wee bit of work just in terms of finessing the fit, I do think it is absolutely worth it, and hopefully you'll give it a go. So I think that was the last of my roundup of patterns I wanted to share with you today. So while I've sat and been able to find time to film today, I don't know if I'll get the time to edit all of these, so we'll see how we go. But hopefully I'll get these up in the next couple of days. Thank you again for popping by and joining me here on my channel. If you haven't subscribed, do remember to hit the subscribe button and like the video if it is of interest to you. And if you want to hit that little notification bell, it'll tell you when I am back with a new vlog. And hopefully I will in the next few days get back. I want to come back and share with you a few of the plans that I have for summer makes. So fingers crossed, maybe even on Sunday I'll get to do that. Until then, everyone take care, happy sewing, and bye bye.